Welcome to Shelf Help. Today we're speaking with Jeff Bull, Chief Creative Officer at Uncle Arnie's very fast growing cannabis and hemp focused beverage brand. Jeff is definitely a man of many talents. In addition to heading up all things creative at Uncle Arnie's, Jeff is also the co-founder, brand director of a multi-location premium donut shop brand around the Minneapolis area, as well as a co-founder of Overcrest, which is a vintage automotive rally and event production brand attracting cars really nationwide. A lot of cool stuff he's working on. Definitely excited to get into it. Most of this is going to be focused on Uncle Arnie's. So yeah, Jeff, first off, just for the listeners that aren't all that familiar with Uncle Arnie's, just give us kind of just quick lay of the land in terms of, origin story, why behind the brand, core products in the lineup. Can dive into a bit about the difference in terms of where you guys are playing in both, the regulated dispensary rec market and hemp market. And then maybe you should throw out a few places people get their hands on it, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, hey, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here, Adam. I think, Uncle Arnie's has been a wild ride, and we'll get into it. But as far as, the why behind the brand, we're one of the original THC beverage brands. We got into the industry pretty early. There's a few that were definitely there before us, but we just saw this huge need in the industry to create a brand that, first of all, started as a high dose brand and served that customer, but was a brand that really took ourselves seriously and thought of ourselves from the get-go as a brand that could be CPG and do things well in a market, when we started out in legacy rec that was very not taking itself seriously. So
Totally.
yeah, so I think the why behind the brand and how we started really was as a high dose brand, and we started in California. We're one of California's largest beverage brands, and we started there because California started as one of the battleground states for legacy brands and rec brands. I think a lot of the best brands in the country cut their teeth in California.
Yeah,
And
totally.
so we started there and have been making there, still make products, and are still one of the top THC recreational brands there.
Yep.
And then as the market's exploded, as it's grown, there's been all kinds of opportunities, obviously, in the hemp market. And so we've seen our brand not only grow on the recreational side, but then now into the hemp space. And we're just seeing all kinds of amazing things happen there.
Yeah, it's definitely a exciting time for sure. So I'm just kind of curious from your take, and just in terms of where are we today, and why does it feel like from your perspective, it seems like a lot of brands are growing really quickly?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons. THC is it's a cannabinoid that gives you a lot of benefits that don't exist with other beverages. Whether it's, it can be more healthy than alcohol. It reduces anxiety. There's things about the THC product that just inherently offer a much different experience than caffeine or alcohol or other things that you might find in a beverage. And so it's been one, amazing and exciting, but also really, I think, positive for, our culture to see this go mainstream. And the hemp product, which is different than the recreational dispensary THC product, the hemp is really given an avenue for the mainstream market in America to get exposure to THC products and to enjoy it safely and responsibly, and it's well dosed. And so it's been an extraordinary growth curve. I think we're still in the middle of the rocket ride right now, and there's obviously a lot of curveballs and changes, but for the most part, we're just seeing an entire culture get exposed to THC in a way that I think was very different than how people might have been exposed to THC 20-25 years ago.
Yep, totally. Yeah, I agree with that. A friend of mine, Tiffany Chin, she kind of runs everything cannabis for Snoop Dogg. And she was talking about how she thought beverages is something that humans have been doing since they were born. So she thought that beverages was kind of going to be the on-ramp to really bring a lot of this stuff more mainstream.
Arnie's, that's the big bet that we made early on.
Right, totally.
We're very, very early in the space. And I think there's a lot of skepticism around beverage and edibles. especially on the recreational side, you just saw a lot of people really leaning into flower and kind of more traditional ways to
Yeah.
consume cannabis. And we made the bet that, listen, Americans love things in a can. They love beverages that are branded and have a message and a story around it. And so we made that bet, and I think as time has gone on, we've seen it come more and more into fruition, where a brand beverage in a can or a bottle or a shot, it's much easier to tell the story. It's much easier to educate consumers and bring them along for the ride, as opposed to, maybe just here's flour, or, here's a joint. I think there's an awesome opportunity with beverage to kind of introduce people in a holistic way.
Yeah. What do you feel like this THC beverage space looks like in 5 years from now, if you had to make a guess?
Wow. If you know anybody who's like selling crystal balls, I am a buyer, especially I think all of us at Uncle Arnie's would be. It's every day is a curveball in cannabis. Both on the hemp and the recreational side, we've endured a lot of change and a lot of uh just with growth, just a massive amount of challenges. And so what I would say for sure is in the next 5 years, I think we're going to see the proliferation of cannabis and THC nationwide. I do feel like, whether we use the word legalization, I like the word normalization. I just think that I've seen so many people who would have never touched THC 5 years ago, who are now semi-regular to regular consumers, and they're very comfortable with it, and they're telling their friends and family about it. And so I think the industry, if you want to call it that, is becoming normalized within American homes. And I think that's exciting. People who pioneered kind of the legalization movement, I think they wanted this, but I'm so pleased and excited that it's actually happening. And I would say
Yeah.
within 5 years, Adam, we continue to see this spread and really just become a normal part of our culture.
Yeah. Yeah. The news that I think was, Target is going to start selling these products in there, and like some of these big box retailers, that was like a very welcome surprise.
Yeah. And not only that they're going to carry it, they're really excited about carrying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, cool. That's kind of good level setting on the kind of space overall. So let's just dive into Uncle Arnie's brand identity, kind of packaging design, everything in that world, which you were and remain to be kind of the architect behind everything around this brand. So just thinking back the early days, what did that kind of brand identity process look like when you're building it out? And what were kind of the key variables that were top of mind for you when you were going through the process?
Yeah, when the brand started, we had several kind of tent poles that we leaned on. First of all, we wanted to be affordable. That was something we've always strived to be, especially in the recreational space, to be able to give people an affordable introduction, or even if they were a regular user already, a way to consume it. And then quality. When cannabis beverage was starting out in California, I mean, we would go into places where people were literally screwing on the tops of bottles, after pouring in liquid, and just not done safely, not done. And so we saw this vision of, let's be experts, let's be affordable, let's be quality. And now that brand identity has kind of grown. And I think we've continued to really flesh out. And as a brand, we've also grown to really want to be a fun brand. I mean, we started as a high dose in the recreational market. We sold 100 milligrams of THC in an 8-ounce drink. That was our first drink. And we did it very inexpensively. And so we kind of put our stake in the ground as a high dose brand. But now we've grown far beyond that. And really we've developed into a brand who really leans into having fun. And we believe that cannabis should be fun. We feel like it should be tasty. It should be an enjoyable experience. And so we really have started to lean that way. And recently we've brought on a new CMO, Brian Mashesky. He was at Sweetwater Brewing. He's just been transformative for us too, and just rethinking where we're moving with this, but and how we can be different than other cannabis brands. Um, we've never since day one talked necessarily about, you know, trying to be the lowest calorie drink or the lowest sugar. We really lean into, you know, Uncle Arnie's brings the party.
Yep.
We are a fun brand. We're unapologetic about THC and about having fun, and we really want products that encourage that. They taste good. They're a good time. So as time's gone on, our brand has evolved, and I think we've really reached a point now where we feel very strong. You know, we feel very good about who we are and where we're going in the space, and just being different from other THC brands.
When you're building up this brand identity, how did you envision it would translate from a visual identity standpoint and packaging design standpoint?
Yeah, I spent time in action sports when I was younger and grew up on the West Coast, and have always loved the artwork of Jimbo Phillips and, you know, Santa Cruz skateboards and this kind of 80s 90s um surf skate snow aesthetic with art. And so when we started exploring, you know, what Uncle Arnie's could be, the brand, we really wanted to be able to have an avatar or a character who could, one, help educate, who could be an avatar for education, could also be the guide for the brand who, you know, we're not necessarily the most important thing. The customer is. Our consumers are the people we want to put the attention on. But having a guide or an avatar like Uncle Arnie himself to be able to come alongside a consumer, educate them, help them make decisions. He's also all about having fun. He's always brewing something special, you know, in the back of his bus that you don't know what's next. So the brand is really couched in that idea that we're not here to be the hero, but we are here to facilitate a really good time. And so we created this avatar, Uncle Arnie. And you know, he's not a real person. He's not somebody who actually exists in real life, but he's kind of an amalgamation of like a lot of different influences and people. Um, I think, you know, early on when we were starting, we talked a lot about everyone's got that uncle. Everyone's got that person in their family who's kind of the odd duck, but they're also super interesting. And so at Thanksgiving, you sneak off with them. They've always got something fun to show you or something they're, you know, something interesting. And so we wanted to like embody that, you know, friendly, exciting, kind of anti-mainstream element into our brand. And that's why we created a mascot in Uncle Arnie. So it's both the name of the brand, but it's also this way that we're able to connect with our customers in, you know, in a different kind of way than other brands do.
Were there any like decision points or things that were, I don't know, more contentious that you guys like had a fair amount of debate internally that ended up getting to where the brand is today? Or was everyone like totally pretty aligned with every component?
I think any good team has good debate. Like,
For sure.
and
Yeah.
we Uncle Arnie's has a team of just absolute all-stars. Um, the management team has, I think, always strive to have really healthy debate, and that's created a brand that's super agile, that is very much has a even today has a startup mindset, even with 60 plus people on our team now and whatnot. The mindset is very agile, very open to new ideas, very open to debate. So yeah, of course we had a lot of debate. I think when it comes just to brand identity and some of the things that went into the packaging piece, the pieces you see on the shelf, we were really dead set on being bright, being fun, and being loud on the shelf, and being a can or a bottle or a shot that when you saw it, you instantly recognized it and it stood apart.
Yeah.
So we, from day one, we've had these really bright gradients on our products. They've helped us stand apart, and they've helped us stand out on the shelf.
Totally. If I came to you and told you I'm thinking about launching a brand in this, say, like THC beverage space, or maybe just the broader, call it functional beverage space, what are just, I don't know, maybe one or two tips you'd give me, or things you'd say or recommend I watch out for that could trip me up along the way?
Yeah, I think some of it maybe is best practice, but then, you know, I like to lean on things that are not, you can't read on how to start your CPG brand online. And I think the most important thing is to be differentiated. Um, Uncle Arnie's is very category or anti-category culture. We're anti-mainstream. We're anti-homogenous.
Yeah.
Um, and we have no problem talking about what we are. We are THC. I'm so surprised, I guess, in a way, to see so many brands trying to hide the fact they're THC. Like they're
Right.
trying to use other words or they're trying to kind of skirt around it. I think customers, there's a lot of really smart, really savvy customers out there, but you also have to be frontal about what you're about and who you are and get to the point. People
Yeah.
don't have time to figure out, some mystery ride about what your brand is or what's in the product. And so
Yeah.
I think, being in CPG, it's important that you're frontal, that you're l- bright and loud. And again, I'm a big fan of just doing what other people aren't doing.
Yeah.
Um, be different and go the other way and take that risk to a certain extent. Take that risk.
Totally. I resonate with all that. As you touched on at the beginning, Uncle Arnie started in the California regulated THC market before you guys really expanded into this national hemp market where brands are sold in restaurants, liquor stores, big box retail. How consistent or different have you guys found is the audience that buys Uncle Arnie's in a dispensary channel versus the audience that buys Uncle Arnie's in your average restaurant or liquor store, as an example?
Yeah, I mean, just to be super honest, they're very different customers.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't mean you can't leverage brand value across the two markets, but we've treated them like they're two different lines of business and markets. Um, I think customers on the dispensary side are they tend to have much more experience with cannabis. It doesn't mean that they're veterans of it, but people who are willing to go in a dispensary tend to be different than someone who might be at the grocery store or at a liquor store.
Yeah.
Um, and so your products in a dispensary are not sitting on a shelf where the customer can usually grab them. They're usually going to have a bud tender that's helping them guide through the process. In a liquor store on the hemp side, it's going to be right next to all your beer and liquor, and so that right there is a very different experience. One, as a customer, but then two, as a brand, and how we support the retailers. The retail experience in a dispensary and how it's run and operated is very different than how the 3-tier system over on the AB Bev side of things is run.
Yeah.
So I think we've tried to be strategic on both of those. But for me, as the creative guy, as the branding guy, as the guy who's doodling, it's important that we're able to have a brand that speaks to both, and that people who walk into a dispensary in California after maybe they've had our 10 milligram drinks in Georgia, they walk into a dispensary in California and see our 100 milligram drinks. There's brand consistency there, and
Yeah.
there's a story that crosses, and people they identify it in a similar way. And so that's been, honestly, Adam, it's been a challenge, but also a huge opportunity. And we're one of the few brands that are in both markets. And we see it as a strength. We see it as
Yeah.
we're able to draw, lessons from both markets and then help the other side of the business grow as a result. So
Yeah.
it's been really good for us.
Yeah. You might have somewhat answered this, but as you guys really started focusing and expanding and more into this hemp bev channel, did you guys make any messaging, look and feel of the brand to appeal to that, I guess, more broad audience? And or if you didn't, right when you guys expanded into the channel, as you started to learn more about this new audience, have you guys along the way made any significant tweaks or pretty consistent?
Yeah, I mentioned this year, 2025, our new CMO came on board, Brian Mashesky, and he's done a really good job of helping us zero in, especially on the hemp side, with who we are, who our messaging is, and really nail our brand DNA, our pillars of who we are. I think now we have a very, very focused strategy, and that really to be able to speak to both that legacy stoner, if you want to call them, and
Yeah.
maybe the newer consumer that's walking into Total Wine. Um, we have kind of four pillars. We believe in the 420 lifestyle, which is, that free spirit, festivals, the park life, the getaways. The second pillar would be we believe that, we're the life of the party. And I already mentioned that we bring the party. We're big on backyard parties and boats and barbecues and all of that. The third pillar we believe in is taking a trip, being able to disconnect in a very chaotic world. And then the last one is, as shown by our art and by by a lot of our marketing, we really believe in outdoor recreation. We believe in being able to get outside and enjoy cannabis in a way outside the four walls. Um, I don't know. I'm a big believer in nature. I'm a big believer that that actually enhances the THC consumption experience.
I'm on the same page there for sure. From a product roadmap, product suite standpoint, you guys have now 3 core product lines in the market that you introduce at different stages. So you start, I think, you have the shots, you have the 12-ounce cans, and ranging from 30 milligrams to down to 3 milligram variations, and then you have the soda pop line. Just kind of curious, what was the first, second, and third order in terms of how when you introduced each one of those product lines, and then what was the thought process behind bringing each to market? It's a multi-part question. And did you guys have you found there's a pretty significant or a distinct audience or use case for each, or is it a pretty broad crossover?
Yeah, it's a good question. On the hemp side, which are the products you mentioned from 3 milligrams up to 30, I know you've had a lot of other THC industry folks on your pod, and something I've heard time and again is, you are at the mercy of the regulations of these states. And so in the hemp industry, it's regulated state by state. So one state may say 10 milligram cap, another may say we have a 4 milligram cap. um, and then there's places like Tennessee right now where we have a 30 milligram drink. And so we are limited, just sheer product roadmap a little bit by what the states are allowing and their own strategies and their own viewpoints on what is available. So we've tried to be really flexible, uh, as strategic as we can going into these states, and we've tried to carry flavors over. So we have a lot of the same flavor profiles and all these different dosages,
Mm-hmm.
but then meeting people where they are at in their state. And what's interesting too is state by state, the consumer is very different. And that's partially because of the regulation. It might be because, cultural backgrounds of a state are different than others, but very much the states do have different customer profiles. And so the product also is meeting the customers where they're at. And we're trying to give them something that that they want.
Yeah. Do you have an example of comparing 2 different states in terms of the differences in those 2 audiences between 2 states? And one's
Yeah,
come top of mind.
sure. We'll a very, stark difference, I guess, would be take Illinois, where both hemp and recreational cannabis is legalized, and we have drinks in both of those markets in one state. Um, Customers in Illinois are a little more experienced because you can access 100 milligram drinks there. You can also access 10 milligram drinks,
Mm-hmm.
and you purchase them in a variety of different locations. So the consumer in Illinois tends to be a little more educated, tends to have had a lot more exposure to THC beverages and edibles of all kinds. Um, you go to a different state, maybe like Georgia, or like a New Jersey, who has a much smaller, much lower cap. Um, that consumer is, when you talk to them about a 30 milligram drink or a 100 milligram drink, their eyes, just melt out of their face. Like, what are you talking about? Like 100 milligrams? I buy 3 milligram at the liquor store. So exposure to the product is probably the biggest thing you see state to state that customers have. Again, if you're someone who really loves THC and you seek it out and you're educated, like, that's not the customer I'm talking about. I'm talking about the customer who's, in the hemp space, who's being exposed to it, for the first time in their lives in the last year or two.
When you guys you got these 3 product lines, a few different SKUs under each one of those. When you guys bring a new, it's individual SKU to market, or maybe one of these new product categories, like within those cans, you introduce the 30 milligram kind of category as an example. What does your kind of typical get playbook look like from a creative standpoint and the stuff that's really kind of in your world? Are there kind of like a standard set of assets that you put together?
This is an area where we're growing up fast, or we're changing quickly. I think, um, especially coming from the rec market, that being our history, uh, standards were very different from retailer to retailer.
Hmm.
Um, but now that we've entered the hemp space and we're working, with these large distributors, um, there's obviously these kind of standards that have existed for decades,
Right.
and that's where we've recently brought on a lot of really good team members who've got experience in this, in the hemp space, in the craft beer space, in AB Bev, and we're catching up very quickly, and we're starting to build out a lot of POS and assets so that we're able to go to market with a much better playbook, much more pro look and feel. And I think very quickly we're seeing retailers expect that.
Yeah.
Um, and we saw a lot of consolidation in the rec market in California and in other states, where there was a lot of brands, and then the ones that were able to serve the retailers' expectations, they were the ones that won, and we saw a lot of consolidation. I think that's what's coming to hemp. I think
Yeah.
the brands that really take themselves seriously, they help the retailers, they meet the retailers with the assets and the tools they need. They're going to be the winners as we see consolidation in hemp. So we're doing our best to do that, and I'm really excited. We're finally starting to think ahead, think a year out, think of about these things so that we're able to give retailers just a lot more tools.
I think as you and I kind of both know, budtenders, where the frontline retail people at dispensaries are a pretty important group from a brand building perspective. A lot of times customers walk into a dispensary and the first thing they'll ask, or they'll oftentimes ask a budtender, what should I buy? And if your brand is the first thing that comes out of that budtender's mouth, you're definitely in a good position to win. And so brands, invest a lot of time and resources with this group from in terms of education, samples, incentives, that kind of stuff. What does Uncle Arnie's strategy look like from this bud tender perspective? Also kind of curious on the hemp side of things. Do you apply kind of a similar strategy to off-premise and or on-premise frontline retail employees?
Well, I will couch all this by saying you're asking the brand guy some very
Fair.
specific sales questions. And there's people in our company who are much smarter and who have thought through this better than I have. That said, I think we have done a good job at trying to engage bud tenders and try to, one, it's all about education again and being able to give them the tools and the education they need to recommend a product that they believe in. Um, and buying cannabis at a dispensary, I've been in many dispensaries, and to me, it can be a very personal experience because you're relying on this bud tender
Yep.
to tell you what to buy.
Yeah.
And if you are coming in maybe a newer consumer, that relationship is even more important. So we've tried to support with, everything from, physical assets like tchotchkes and shirts and merch and all of that, but then also giving them education, dosage education, how the product works. I think our team does a really good job of offering our retailers and our partners as much of that as they'll take.
Yeah.
Sampling, and you mentioned on premise, off premise. We do sample events, parties, events. I think this is an area that you're going to see grow a lot in cannabis, but especially in rec, there's some pretty exciting events. I mean, one in Chicago that we went to a year ago, the Miracle Mundaline with Rise. It was incredible. It was a massive music festival, consumption, open air consumption of all kinds. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for brands to engage customers alongside the retailer, alongside
Totally.
the bud tender, in new ways like that, like music festivals.
Yeah.
And it's a way I think that the future is very blue sky and a ton of potential.
Yep. Totally. I'm on the same page there for sure. Shifting gears a little bit. I know you guys just closed a Series A, pretty sizable Series A, 7.5 million bucks or so, which is awesome. Congrats. What's this capital infusion going to do for the business?
Yeah, this is where the shout out goes to our high management team. I'm not responsible for the money at all. I'm just I'm the guy, scratching out drawings in the back room. But yeah, we did raise. We've got really really good partners, investors that believe in the category, but then also believe in our team. And so it's allowed us to grow pretty quickly, into very strategically. But we've brought on some incredible talent, and I think one of the things we've learned is, talent is really what makes or breaks you when you're in an early stage CPG brand like this. So we're investing in talent. That's the first thing that's immediately noticed. But
Yeah.
then we're also, like we just spoke about, we're starting to dig into providing the resources to distributors, to retailers. Um, that 3-tier system that exists in the hemp market, we're gonna come correct with those resources as well. And then over on the rec side too, I mean, our team on the rec side has just continued to just crush it. And so we've been bringing in more talent on that side and thinking through some new strategies. We're always looking at new states and new partners. So it's a really exciting time for us as a brand. We're in a strong position, but we're being careful. And with all the changes in hemp that are going on right now, we feel good. We feel like we're positioned well, and we can continue to be strategic because our partners have put us in a position to do that.
For some other creative leaders of the world, let's just say someone just took a role as a similar role to you, chief creative officer level type role at a cannabis or hemp beverage brand. What are they in for? What's going to be the biggest shock and the thing that's going to feel the most refreshing?
Uh, the thing that's going to feel the most refreshing is the potential, um, the opportunity. I think there's enormous opportunity in the industry. Um, as far as a shock, uh, the regulatory frameworks from state to state and uh, nationally, all of it it's constantly changing under our feet. It's just shifting sand. So the amount of changes that are needed from on the packaging side, on the operational side, are enormous. And so it's very shocking. I think if you're coming from beer, the kind of changes that we go through just on a week to week basis are things that may not change in alcohol over the course of years.
Yeah, a lot more iterations, a lot more quick turns, basically, is what has to happen.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Got
Yes.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's opportunity in some ways because it is hard. And
Yeah.
I think that's cannabis is not easy. It's not for the faint of heart, but it does present a lot of opportunity if you've got the stomach for it.
Well, yeah, Jeff, this has been awesome. Last question for you. Um, you're just so plugged into kind of the brand space in general. Any brands or specific brands or just trends in general in the broader kind of CPG world that you've been kind of particularly excited about lately?
Yeah, I mean, I love brands and I love brand art identity. I think in the CPG space, it's been really fun to see the non-alc beverage industry, what's happening. Whether it's on the more health conscious side or even just, there's a lot of brands that are doing very new, innovative things. Um, I just am so intrigued and I love it. It's fun to see alcohol being given a good run for its money in a way with the options that people now have to buy. And even at large scale, starting to see just the most, I don't know, just interesting things pop up. I was at Costco last night, which Costco, whatever, is massive, but they had fresh coconuts. There's all these brands that you have a fresh coconut and you pop, you pull out the tab, pop your straw in and just drink straight up coconut milk out of the coconut. And
That's
it's like,
awesome.
if you take all the packaging off, it's literally a raw coconut that somebody just hacked out.
Yeah,
And I love seeing I don't know if you call that innovation, but the ideas that people are coming with in the non-alc space that are just giving consumers a lot more options. And if you're somebody who's health conscious or somebody who cares about, your body or the environment or everything, this is a great time to be alive, because I think
totally.
the
Yeah,
amount of options you have, it's phenomenal. So I'm pretty excited and pretty encouraged by just every time you go to the store, there's something new. Um, there's always a startup that's kind of challenging the big boys, and hey, it's great time to be a consumer.
totally. I 100% agree with that. Well, yeah, Jeff, this has been awesome. You got so many cool things you're working on between Uncle Arnie's and all the other businesses you own and run. What's the best place for people to follow along with you? And then similarly, what's the best place for people to kind of follow along with everything that's going on with Uncle Arnie's?
Yeah, well, Uncle Arnie's, unclearnie's.com, pretty straightforward. And I'll give you a code, Adam. You can put it in the show notes or whatever
Perfect. Yeah, great.
for a discount.
Yeah.
That's the best place to find the brand. I'm on Instagram, JFRY with some underscores in between those letters. But yeah, I think the most important thing is that people right now in cannabis and just all of us are active, especially with the changes happening in hemp.
Yep.
That, if you do have a voice on social or you do have a voice on LinkedIn, that you're saying your piece, because right now cannabis brands really need the industry and the consumers to speak up.
Yep. Totally. Yeah. Write your congressman. It's not that hard. Write him a
Yeah.
short note. Make your voice heard is important for sure.
Yes.
Well, awesome, Jeff. This has been great. Really appreciate the time.